In this video you will learn how to use the indicator's graphical user interface in order to show them in charts and watch their values in tabular form. In order to manage the indicators in the main window of 3D Conceiver, select the Indicators tab. The list of implemented overlays and indicators is presented in a tree-like structure. To expand or collapse a branch, either double-click on it or click on its handle. The tree has two main branches, overlays. They are charted in the same graph as the price. Indicators. They are charted in a graph separate from the price. These two together are usually referred to simply as indicators. The indicators branch is further divided into three branches. Standard indicators contains standard indicators in the usual sense. Profit and loss. These are devised for plotting profit and loss quantities in charts. Trading algorithms. These are representations of trading algorithms, again useful for plotting in charts. By expanding the branches, at the end the leaves are found, where the actual indicators lie. To select an indicator, click on it. Some leaves are left empty for readability purposes. Other leaves contain titles in bold characters, again for improved readability. After a while, you could find to have expanded a lot of branches and want to collapse the whole tree. In order to do that, click on the tree icon in the main toolbar. You can resize the tree pane vertically or horizontally by dragging the dividers on its sides. You can even collapse the whole pane containing the tree vertically or horizontally by clicking on the small arrows of the dividers. To expand it, click on the arrows again. When you select an indicator, a brief description of it appears in the description pane. This is not intended to be a tutorial about the indicator, they are just reminders, notes. A brief introduction or definition comes first. In the Interpretation section, you can find how to interpret the indicator according to the literature. We stress that these are just notes about what you can find in the literature. Do not stick to it. The real interpretation is up to you. Oftentimes, the interpretation depends on the value taken on by the indicator. Considerations in the different ranges of the indicator's output are usually reported. In the Literature Signal section, we report what literature usually says about the phase of the market implied by the indicator, like uptrend, downtrend or congestion. Do not rely on the signals listed here. Decisions are up to you. These are only notes, reminders of what you can find in bibliography. Any decision is legitimate, even the exact opposite of what is reported by reputable authors. Moreover, a single indicator seldom can give reliable signals. These must always be confirmed by other indicators. Most indicators require input parameters from the user. If the meaning or range of such parameters is not readily clear from the description or from the formulae, some elucidation could be reported in this section. Usually it is not reported for the look-back period because it is trivial. The output of some indicators consists of more than one curve or series of values. In those cases, usually the list of series is reported here. When it is obvious what the output series are, even if multiple, nothing is reported here, for instance in channels, bands, indicators. The ordinal number of the series is also meaningful, for instance because it determines the color in the charts or the relative position in the table. In charts, look at the color corresponding to the series in order to pinpoint the curve of interest. In the table, look at the relative position of the series in order to identify the column of interest. For instance, in this example, the ADX indicator has three output series. The -DI output series, as reported in the description pane, is the number 2. In charts, it is drawn with the color number 2. In the table, it is shown in the second of the 3 columns dedicated to the ADX indicator. In the output bounds section, the output bounds are described. They might be useful when deciding a threshold in many trading algorithms, as reported in the interpretation and signal sections. Note that the bounds of the base indicator reported here refer to the fact that the input data for the base indicator is the price, which is always a positive number. But bounds of the function per se could be different. For instance, the rate of change per se is unbound, but when applied to a positive quantity, its lower bound is minus 100. Some indicators depend on others. For instance, all variants of a base indicator do. In that case, those indicators are pointed out in the Use Indicators section in form of links. Click the link to go to the description of the relevant indicator. In the Hint Note section, some notes might be reported. The mathematical formula defining the indicator is written in the Formulae section. This is the real definition of the indicator. It also disambiguates cases where slightly different variations of the same indicator appear in literature. The selection panes are where you select the indicators you want to plot in charts or show in the table. Indeed, there are 2 of them. Table. The indicator selected here will be shown in the table. Chart. The indicator selected here will be plotted in the charts. You select the pane of your choice through the corresponding tabs on top. Usually you want to plot on chart and show in the table the same indicators. In that case, you can deselect the checkbox Distinguish Table Chart and fill in just one tab with the indicators of your choice. They will be used both for the table and the charts. On the contrary, by selecting the checkbox, you can distinguish the 2. Each tab is divided into 2 sections. Overlays, charted in the same graph as the price. Indicators. Each of them is charted in a graph separate from the price. When you press the selection button, the corresponding slot is filled in with the indicator selected in the tree. This way, the indicator is effectively selected. The buttons in the overlays or indicator sections are enabled only when the corresponding branch in the indicators tree is selected. So if any of the leaves or sub-branches of the overlays branch is selected in the indicators tree, just the selection buttons for the overlays section are enabled in the selection pane, while the selection buttons of the indicator section are disabled. The other way around holds if the selection in the indicators tree involves the indicators branch. So first, select the overlay or indicator of your choice in the tree, then press one of the selection buttons to put it in the corresponding slot. The indicator name is shown on top. If you hover the mouse over it, the description of the indicator is shown as a tooltip. Input parameters are given default values just for convenience. Do not rely on those. Choose your own. To choose the value for an input parameter, first select it through the combo box. After selecting the input parameter in the combo box, you can choose its value through the spinner. You can input a new value manually and then pressing the Enter key. Or you can increment-decrement the value by pressing the up-down arrows respectively. If the number is an integer, the increment is by 1. If the number is a floating point number, the increment is by 0.1. The spinner makes sure some constraints are satisfied, like the lower and upper bounds for each parameter. Usually you can find such bounds in the parameters section of the description. You cannot input values colliding with the constraints. Let's take the Bollinger Bands as an example. The minimum value for a look-back period, an integer number, is usually 1. If you decrease the number through the spinner, you cannot go below 1, even if you enter manually a value like 0 or a negative number. For the Bollinger Band in particular, you can read in the description pane that the multiplier must be a positive real number. Again, you cannot enter a number less than 0. In the Input Parameters Values text field, you can see all the input parameters. If you hover the mouse over this field, a tooltip with the names of the input parameters appears. The order is the same as in the combo box. Press the Reset button to clear the slot. In literature, indicators are always defined using closing prices. For instance, the formula for the simple moving average with a look-back period of 3 is the following: the sum of the last 3 closing prices divided by 3. The close price is used because it is considered to be the most important, as it is the very last price of the trading session, hence the most recent one. However, exactly the same formula can be applied with other price values instead of the closing one. For instance, we can consider the average between the high and low, or high-low average, defined as the sum of the high and the low divided by 2. Substituting the close price with this average, the formula for the simple moving average becomes the following: the sum of the last 3 high-low averages divided by 3. With this choice, we are considering the whole range of the price between the high and low to be most important, not the closing price. Another possible average is the typical price, that is the average between the high, low and close values. So we sum the high, low and close values and divide them by 3. This kind of average considers equally important the high, low and close values. Put another way, it considers important the whole range of the price between the low and the high, as before the high-low average, but factors in also the close, to shift the average more toward the close. Still another possibility is the OHLC average, that is the average between the open, high, low and close values. So we sum the open, high, low and close values and divide the sum by 4. This average considers of equal importance the open, high, low and close values. In the For Price Use pane, Trading Conceiver lets you select between all the previously mentioned quantities: close, high-low average, typical price, OHLC average. This is a very powerful feature, letting you customize the indicator's computation based on what you think is the most relevant price value. Indicators will always be computed according to this choice, even the ones used for trading algorithms. To make this last point clearer, if you select any algorithm based on the simple moving average in the Composer tab, the SMA will be calculated according to the choice you made in the For Price Use pane on the Indicators tab. Let's make an example. Let's open 2 instances of Trading Conceiver. Select the simple moving average with a look-back period of 3 in both. In one we select the closing price, in the other the typical price. The formula used in both cases will be the same. However, in one case the price is the close, while in the other it is the typical price. Run the simulations. From the results, you can see that the computed values for the indicator are very similar but slightly different. In the indicators derived from the base one, a crucial role is played by the moving average, abbreviated as MA. For instance, MA of stochastic. Trading Conceiver lets you select between the following moving averages: simple moving average, exponential moving average, linear weighted moving average, Wilder's moving average. This is another very powerful feature, letting you customize how the indicators are averaged according to the formula of your choice. The link in the Use Indicator section of the description pane will always bring you to the indicator according to the selection in the As MA Use pane. If you want to look at the formulae, please refer to the relevant page on the manual, or look at the tooltips. One of the indicators derived from the base one is the angle. As its name implies, it is the angle formed by 2 points on the curve. Angles can be expressed in many units of measure. Trading Conceiver lets you select how to express angles between degrees and gradients. There are 90 degrees and 100 gradients in the right angle. This selection holds for any angle, in particular for input parameters. So, if an input parameter of an algorithm is in angle, the maximum and the minimum value you can input depend on the choice made here, namely plus or minus 94 degrees or plus or minus 100 for gradients. You can save the configuration of the whole indicator panel by pressing the Save button. In the pop-up window, choose an appropriate directory and file name. The file extension is the part of the name of the file coming after the last dot. Only files with such an extension are shown. To see all the files, regardless of the extension, in the pop-up window select Files of type All Files. To confirm saving, press the Save button in the pop-up window. When saving the file, an extension to the file is added automatically. By default, the file extension is Indicators, but you can customize it in Tools Options Extensions. To load a saved configuration, press the Load button. Again, in the pop-up window, only files with the appropriate extension are shown. Select one of the files you saved before and confirm loading by pressing the Open button. You can load and save the configuration both for the indicators and the Composer panels simultaneously. This is described in the Composer user interface. To reset the current tab, press the Reset this tab button. To reset both the table and the chart tabs, press the Reset all tabs button. To reset all selection panes of both the indicators and the Composer tabs, press the corresponding icon in the toolbar.